Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 15. On this episode, we're going to do a Meet the Z. What I love about the Meet the Zs is that prior to franchising, I was a rock star journalist. I thought I was going to cover the music or sports industry from a writing and content standpoint for my career. At some point, I realized my salary was not large enough, and I jumped into franchising accidentally. But I'll say, from a storytelling standpoint, what I found out is that the franchisee stories are just as beneficial or impactful as rock stars. There's always this great journey that happens before someone makes the decision to invest their life savings into becoming a franchisee. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation with Jason DiPietro today. Let me welcome in Charles Internicola. Charles, welcome. And Jason, thank you for spending some time with us. What I would love, Jason, for you to do is tell us your story. How do you even get to the point of becoming a franchisee? Because learning about that pathway even gets us to the place where we're talking on a conversation today. So I would love to hear your story on how you even end up in franchising.
Yeah, so I started with real estate when I was younger, and I had a bunch of rental properties, and I also had a regular job working in engineering. And I liked it, but the owning real estate is what actually spoke to me, because it was my thing, and I was independent, and I could do what I wanted to do with it. And then I tried my hand at construction, and I liked that, but it just still didn't speak to me. So wanted to own a business, and franchising had kind of piqued my interest because it was nice that you bought into a system and you had a support network, but I didn't know what was the right one. So I had just moved to Denver, and I was in the process of liquidating all my real estate. And at a networking event, I met a guy who was a franchise consultant, which I didn't even know was a thing. It was David Weaver with Franchise, and I worked with him, and he was just fantastic. And he asked me what I wanted out of a business and what I wanted to do and what I wanted my day-to-day to look like. And he helped me narrow it down to a couple of choices. And I was really excited about the process, and having him there by my side it made me feel like I had somebody that was like looking out for me, because there's some less good franchises out there as well. So when he showed me right at home, the big thing was it gave me purpose. That's what I was looking for, was a business that I could get into that had purpose behind it. It wasn't just a job. It wasn't just a business. It was a thing that I could help people, and even their mission was on point with what I wanted. It was to improve the quality of life for those that we serve. And I knew I had found the thing that I wanted to do. So,
Nick, that was a great question. And Jason, that's a great response, because I think in that response, you may have encapsulated everything that could be important in the franchise world. And I wouldn't even know where to begin, because, I mean, first off, like, hearing that history is tremendous. Hearing you focus on a couple of things. One, the value of working with a franchise consultant and broker and how that made you feel. Two, how you described the franchise opportunity. And I think you honed in on the purpose and its mission, right? So if I could backtrack a couple of steps here. Now, just imagine there's someone out there looking to buy a franchise. They're on their own journey. Could you share, Jason, what you would say are, and it's so juvenile when I do this, like the three important things. It may show a sign of just lower brain function, but if you could just give, for that person out there, someone who may watch this video and say, you know what, like Jason, I want to do this. What are the three things you think they should hone in on before they sign a franchise agreement, and how they go about this process?
Education, I think, is key. I read a lot of books as I started this process. The E-Myth actually was one of my favorites that really helped me understand what to keep an eye on. The second thing is having a franchise consultant is really helpful, because if you just Google, buy a franchise, you're inundated with websites and people trying to sell you franchises that you don't have any insight into. So that, that's really helpful. There's another podcast that I listened to hours and hours and hours to, was the Franchise Story podcast with Eric Van Horn and Brian Holmes. And they interview existing franchisees, and to hear the insights of what works, what doesn't work. They talk to franchisors and franchisees, and it let me understand how franchises work all the way around. So that was really insightful. And the final one is make the validation calls. I made over a dozen of them to franchisees within Right at Home, and I was floored at the positive feedback that I had gotten from the franchisees about the system and the network and the team behind them. And I gotta say, even through all this COVID stuff, that has been a shining point working with the Right at Home team.
Jason, I want to continue on the validation track for a second. But funny you say Eric Van Horn. He's our guest on the next episode of this. So you just let it in perfectly for next week. So validation from the franchisor standpoint, they understand how important it is. All franchisors want to sell more franchises, whether they use the term award or sell. They want to continue to grow until you hit a snowball effect where the growth happens naturally. So ultimately, the number one sales tool for any franchise brand ends up being the franchisees. When you decide that you're going to go through and ask these questions, if I'm validating a brand, the first question I would ask is, would you buy this again? Which I think sets a really nice tone for where does the discussion go. But when you were going through this, one, how do you get to these 12? Like, what was your methodology behind finding the 12 that you wanted to pick? And then secondly, what was like the leading question that got them to open up to you that made you feel really good about this opportunity?
So first of all, I picked a few of the franchisees that were in my state, because we deal with licensure. So the business can vary quite a bit state to state. So that was where I picked my first couple. And then a few of them were recommended to me by some of the franchisor people that I've been working with. But the other ones, I literally just threw a dart at the dartboard and picked random people, because I figured that was also a good way to get just a literal random cross-section of franchisees. The questions that I asked were, I tried to leave them kind of vague, because I didn't want to hear a direct answer. I wanted to get people's feelings about the business and how they like it and what their day-to-day looks like. And depending on the person, you get different perspectives on it, right? Because some people came into the franchise and they were originally a caregiver, and so they have a perspective of it. And then some people come in and they had a car dealership before this, and they have a perspective. And it was almost like looking at alternate universes, because we all have the same business and the same business model and the same support, but we all come at it from different directions. And that's fascinating. So what I tried to look for when I spoke with them is let them just answer me how they wanted to answer, and then I could assess for myself, are they someone like me? And then it tells me if I will like it or not.
That, Jason, that's some great insight. I'm curious, that was Right at Home the only brand you made the validation calls for?
No, it was not.
So you made validation calls on other systems. What, if you could describe generally, without the system,
Yeah.
What were the intangibles or the statements that turned you away maybe in the validation process when you considered other franchise systems?
I was between another one that was a fitness studio, which post-COVID, I'm very lucky I didn't go that direction. But it was a much simpler concept, and part of what I wanted to get out of it was I wanted something that was a little more complex that I could get into and learn more about all the parts and pieces of a business. So that was really the other thing that leaned me to Right at Home is there's a lot going on. There's a lot more to manage than just a small fitness studio.
Jason, if you think back through the process, I mean, you talk about like you get inundated with opportunities if you just went blindly, which is why you ended up using a franchise consultant. Is there during your process, you've decided, you've raised your hand, said, I'm interested in becoming a franchise owner. Obviously, the consultant has delivered back some opportunities that align with at least fundamentally what you're saying. They are incentivized to also move you through because they get rewarded by helping you buy. So there is some sales aspect there, but they're there to help give you what inventory that they have. Is there anything, could any other franchise brand at the point that you decided that you're raising your hand, could they have intercepted you and got you into the conversation with them if you're looking on Facebook or LinkedIn and a brand hits you at that point? Or were you basically saying, I trust the person that I'm working with, I feel good about this consultant, I'm going to take that pathway? Was there any opportunity to intercept you and pull you into another brand, or were you fully committed to the process that you were in?
It depends on at what point in that process I would say, but yeah, I remained open-minded, and if something else had come across my field of view, I would have been interested to hear about it. But pretty quickly after I started talking to the Right at Home team and doing my validation calls and things, you would have had a pretty tough time convincing me to go elsewhere. The glowing things that all the franchisees had to say about them was really what I needed to hear and sold me for sure.
So, and Jason, how long have you been a part of the Right at Home system now?
About a month.
Okay. So, but what's always important, and I think a big part of the process is that in the franchise sales cycle, everyone's on the phone, everyone's speaking. And I guess as a franchisee, even as a human, no matter what you're doing, whether you sign a contract with a vendor or not, there's always that question, are they going to care and be the same after I sign the franchise agreement? And I was just curious if you could speak to that a little. I mean, what was your experience so far, what you expected?
Oh, it's been great. I had been to Discovery Day, and I was ready to sign my franchise paperwork, and COVID happened, and I had a bit of anxiety about how the whole thing was going to play out and things like that. And I knew I had a couple of weeks before they were expecting me to sign the paperwork. And Eric Little, their chief development officer, reached out to me. And we had a conversation about the state of the world and the state of the franchise and things. I was shocked at his honesty and his openness and his candidness about what was going on behind the scenes with Right at Home and how they were handling it and what they were expecting to play out. And he actually gave me a little more time. He said, I don't want you to feel pressured. If you want to kind of see how things play out. There was a couple legislative things that affected our business. And I couldn't believe how open to discussion they were. And that really is one of the big things that solidified that they were people that I wanted to get into business with, because they in fact wanted to do the right thing, and that was helpful. And then so I waited an additional month, and I kept in touch with some of the other franchisees, And everybody had dips in their business. It's just COVID, and but they all spoke very highly of how the Right at Home team had their back. Right at Home had never dealt with PPE, protective gear before, and the prices skyrocketed everywhere. And Right at Home, as a system, they had the buying power, so they went out and they struck deals, and they got PPE at reasonable prices and shared those savings with the franchisees. And that says a lot about the system and who they are and how they do business. And they really helped their franchisees through the whole process so far. And it's very reassuring. I don't even have doors open yet. I'm sitting in an empty office space at the moment. But I still feel great about it because I have that engagement team that is always there for me, and they're always checking in on me, and they're helping me keep my eyes open of what's next. And every step of the way, I've been very happy.
Jason, I think what I'm about to do is called leading the witness, but I'm going to do it anyway because I believe this to be true. The more that we've probably talked with, 30 different franchisees since COVID started. Charles and I started having these conversations. And what's fascinating is like the product ends up being a check mark, but it doesn't seem to be what franchisees buy. Like let's take everything that you heard about Right at Home and you applied this back to the gym concept. Do you buy that based on you have an Eric Little who is not overselling you. You have franchisees who are still confident. You're seeing all the check marks. Are you buying into the people at that point? Or like what value is the product? Obviously you have to believe in what you're offering. You have to believe in Right at Home as a brand and product.
Of course.
But does the leadership and the people, does that trump it? And if this existed on a fitness brand, does that change your initial decision?
Well, I think the product is huge, right? Especially in COVID. If you're trying to launch a fitness concept during COVID, then you can have the best leadership team in the world behind you, and you're going to have a really tough time.
Yeah.
So yeah, the product is part of it, but to me, the thing about franchising is, I've never worked in this space before. I know I'm capable and I have the drive and I want to do it, but I need leadership to help get me there. And so, yeah, to know you have good leadership, has your back and will take care of you and do the right thing by you is paramount. It really is.
Jason, I'm going to take a shot. I don't know if you're married or not. We were just speaking with Leslie Cuban, who's a broker, right? Mm-hmm. And she made a very compelling point to me that I didn't consider. Yeah. I asked her what are some of the factors where franchisees shouldn't buy. One of which she said is if they don't have support from a spouse or family. And I don't know your situation if you're married or not. Family support, not support. What's your take on that?
So I'm not married. But I have a fantastic family, and they're all very supportive of me. Growing up, my parents answered, no matter how crazy of a thing I wanted to do, they were always, yes, you'll be awesome at it. And even when I wasn't, they were still supportive of me, and that was great. And I have a great network of friends that always have my back, and when I'm having a tough day, I can reach out to them and they tell me the same thing. You can do it, so I don't think necessarily a spouse by your side is the most important thing. I think it would be helpful, but having friends and family that really have your back is important because it's tough. You need sanity checks and you need people to give you a hug sometimes. It's hard.
Well, and if you take that statement, I mean, ultimately that's what Right at Home was giving you in this process. And maybe this misses in a sales process because so many brands are conditioned to sell franchises versus saying, as a part of the process, Jason, tell me what you need from a family or from a friend standpoint. What are the qualities that you look for to have support. And your statement of my parents would support me no matter what my crazy idea was, that's ultimately what you're looking for from a franchisor. You're looking for them to say, in the good times and the bad times, we're here and we have your back. And we're going to figure out how to best support you, period, so that you can navigate this crazy idea that you have of becoming a franchisee, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Jason, time's up. We appreciate the time that you've given us. I really appreciate your honesty. I think this video is fantastic for anybody that's thinking about buying a franchise, whether you're currently at a franchise or you're currently going through the process. You've given tremendous insights, and frankly, you move forward during COVID. So it shows that if you find the right business, don't slow down your dreams. Obviously, make sure the check boxes are there, but continue pressing forward. So we appreciate your story. Thanks for sharing the conversation with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Okay, stay safe.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.